The doll that watches you sleep. My grandmother left me many things when she passed: a cameo brooch, a set of silver spoons, a hoped chest full of quilts. But the one item I wish she'd taken to her grave was the doll. It arrived in a cardboard box with no return address, delivered by a courier service I'd never heard of. Inside, wrapped in yellowed tissue paper that crumbled at my touch, sat a porcelain doll with glass eyes that seemed to follow you around the room no matter where you stood. The box smelled of mothballs and old attics, of decades tucked away from sunlight. My grandmother called her Matilda. According to family lore, Matilda had been crafted in Germany in 1887. A custom-made doll for a wealthy merchant's daughter who had begged her father for something no other child possessed. The girl died of scarlet fever 3 days after receiving it, and the doll was passed down through generations, always given to the youngest girl in the family as if it were some kind of heirloom rather than a warning. I was an only child, so Matilda came to me when I turned 8. Presented by my grandmother with a strange solemnity I was too young to understand. She held my shoulders firmly and said, "You take care of her now, Sarah. She's chosen you." I thought she meant chosen, as in inherited. I didn't know she meant chosen as in claimed. I remember the first night distinctly, the way certain memories burn themselves into your mind, whether you want them there or not. I placed Matilda on a high shelf across from my bed, her glass eyes staring blankly at the wall because I could unbear the thought of those eyes watching me sleep. The room was dark except for the pale blue glow of my nightlight, and I remember thinking how peaceful she looked up there, how harmless. I woke at exactly 3 a.m. I checked the clock to find her facing me, her head turned a full 90 degrees from where I'd left her, as if she'd simply rotated her neck while I slept. I told myself I must have moved her in my sleep, though I'd never sleepwalked in my life and the shelf was too high for my 8-year-old arms to reach without a chair. I climbed out of bed, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird, and I put her back. I made sure she faced the wall this time, pressing her porcelain nose against the wallpaper so she couldn't possibly turn around again. The next morning, Matilda was on my nightstand, inches from my face. Her painted mouth seemed to curve into a slight smile that hadn't been there before, a knowing expression that made my stomach drop. I screamed, and my mother came running in her bathrobe, her hair disheveled. She laughed when I pointed at the doll, said I must have brought her closer during the night, because children do such things. They sleepwalk and rearrange their rooms and never remember a thing, but I knew I hadn't. I knew it with the absolute certainty of a child who understands something that adults refuse to see. Things escalated in ways that still make my hands shake when I think about them. Matilda appeared in different rooms of the house. The kitchen table one morning propped against the salt shaker as if waiting for breakfast. The bathroom counter another time, staring at me from behind my toothbrush. Once inside the refrigerator sitting on a shelf next to the milk, her porcelain face covered in a fine layer of condensation that looked like sweat. Her position changed constantly, always facing whatever direction I was in, her glass eyes tracking me like a security camera mounted on invisible wires. I started covering her with a cloth at night. A heavy towel I tucked around her completely so she couldn't see me, couldn't watch. But every morning the cloth would be on the floor, crumpled in a heap, and Matilda would be staring at my bed with that same faint smile. When I was 12, I tried to throw her away. I'd reached that age where logic battles with fear, and I'd convinced myself that my parents were right, that I was imagining things, that dolls don't move and the mind plays tricks in the dark. I drove with my father to the dump on a Saturday morning, the box containing Matilda sitting in the back seat like a passenger I couldn't wait to discharge. I watched him toss the box into a mountain of trash, watched it tumble down the slope and disappear among rotting food and broken furniture. I felt lighter than I had in years. That night, I found Matilda sitting on my pillow, her glass eyes wet with what looked like tears glistening in the moonlight, or maybe just condensation. I told myself it was just condensation, even as I noticed that her porcelain dress was smudged with something that looked like landfill dirt. The worst incident happened when I was 15, old enough to drive but not old enough to move out, old enough to know that what was happening wasn't normal but not old enough to escape it. I woke up, unable to move, sleep paralysis. I later learned, though I've never been entirely convinced, that's all it was. Anne saw Matilda standing on my chest, her tiny porcelain hands pressed against my throat. She was heavy, far heavier than a doll her size should be, and I could feel the cold porcelain through my pajama shirt. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, could only stare into those glass eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. a sickly yellow light like old street lamps. Then I heard a whisper, high-pitched and childish but ancient at the same time. A voice that seemed to come from inside my own head. "You're mine." Grandmother promised, "You're mine forever." The paralysis broke, and I threw Matilda across the room with the strength I didn't know I possessed. She hit the wall and shattered into a dozen pieces, porcelain shards scattering across the carpet, one glass eye rolling under my dresser. I sat there, gasping, sobbing, waiting for my parents to come investigate the noise. They didn't. The house remained silent. In the morning, I went to clean up the mess, to prove to myself that it had really happened. But there was no mess. The carpet was clean. The eye was gone. Matilda sat on her shelf, completely intact, her glass eyes fixed on me with an expression that looked almost amused. I moved out at 18, and haven't returned to that house except for brief visits. But Matilda followed. She arrived in a box on my first apartment doorstep, wrapped in the same yellowed tissue paper, the same faint smell of mothballs clinging to her lace dress. I've thrown her in rivers and watched her sink, only to find her sitting on my doorstep the next day, dripping wet. I've burned her in bonfires and watched her porcelain blacken and crack, only to wake up and find her on my nightstand, pristine and smiling. I've buried her in remote forests, dug holes 3 feet deep in places I couldn't find again if my life depended on it. And she always comes back within a week, sometimes with dirt still clinging to her dress. She's in my current apartment now, on a high shelf where I can see her at all times. I've learned that if I watch her, she doesn't move. If I keep my eyes on her constantly, she remains still as any normal doll should. But the moment I sleep, the moment my eyelids close and my consciousness drifts away, she watches me. I know this because I've set up cameras, dozens of cameras over the years, and every recording shows the same thing. Me sleeping peacefully, and Matilda's head slowly turning, her eyes finding me in the darkness. I don't have children. I never will. The thought of passing this burden to another generation, of watching some innocent child experience what I've experienced, is sunburn. The family curse ends with me. But sometimes, laddie at night, when the apartment is silent, and I'm trying to convince myself that I'm safe, I hear a tiny voice whispering from the shelf above my bed. It's high-pitched and childish, the voice of a little girl who died over a century ago, and it says the same thing every time. You're mine, forever and ever and ever. Last night, I woke up at 3 a.m. and found Matilda standing on my nightstand, closer than she's been in years. Her glass eyes were wet, and this time, I knew it wasn't condensation. This time, when I looked closely, I saw that the liquid was pinkish, tinged with something that looked like blood. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in the corner of my room with the lights on, watching her, and she watched me back. In the morning, I checked her dress and found a new detail I'd never noticed before. Stitched into the hem in tiny perfect letters that must have been there all along but somehow invisible until now were the words, "I wait." I don't know what she's waiting for. I don't want to know, but I feel it coming, whatever it is. I feel it in the way the temperature drops when I enter my bedroom, and the way my dreams have become filled with images of that German merchant's daughter, a pale child with Matilda's eyes reaching for me from across a century of silence. I feel it in the way Matilda's smile has grown slightly each year, a millimeter at a time, so slowly that I only notice when I look at photographs from years past. Her smile is wider now than it was when I was 8. Her eyes are brighter, and sometimes, when I pass by her shelf, I could swear I hear her breathing. The doll that watches you sleep. That's what I'll call her if I ever write this down. If I ever tried to warn others, but warnings won't help. Once she's chosen you, once she's decided that you belong to her, there's no escape. There's only the long nights, and the watching, and the waiting. There's only the tiny voice whispering promises in the dark, forever and ever and ever.